If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with another album review for you guys. We're getting closer to the end of the year, which means I need to start prepping up for the top 50 album of the year list that I'm going to do in mid-December. But we got ourselves another album to talk about. There's still quite a few albums left coming out in 2022 that I'll be talking about. And just as a note, no more under-the-radar episodes for the rest of the year because I need to focus on re-listening to some albums from earlier in the year and get this top 50 list made. But for today, I am talking about the latest offering from a very underrated British thrash metal legend, and that is Xentrix with 7 Words. So this is the band's 6th studio album that came out on November 11th, National Metal Day, and Happy Veterans Day to all of our military people. And yeah, new album coming out on the 11th. So, of course, like I said, this is their 6th studio album, and of course, Xentrix was always a thrash band that I always saw people talk about, but I didn't really give much of a chance to until fairly recently when I got their first 2 albums, Shattered Existence and For Whose Advantage. Both albums are fucking amazing thrash metal albums from the late 80s, early 90s period, respectively. And they remind me so much of Metallica and some other bands, too. So we get a new album, and of course this is their second album on their current comeback run. They had an album out in 2019, I forget the title of it off the top of my head. And here we are 3 years later with another studio offering. So how does this one stack up? Well, this album, I will admit, it is hostile, it is heavy, it's aggressive, and I love the production on this album. The production done by Andy Sneap, although I'm not sure if he was the actual producer. I do know he mixed this album, and you can somewhat tell it's an Andy Sneap mix, even though it sounds very different from a lot of Andy Sneap mixes. So, sounds like Andy Sneap did actually turn some knobs up quite a bit. And I love how with the production on this album, you get like fairly even kiltered volumes amongst the instruments and vocal passages. Like the bass is prominent, the drums and the guitars are audible, the vocals are crisp. Like pretty much almost a perfect sounding album, which I know might irritate some people. But hey, I like it, and it still has a little bit of a raw energy behind it, which I do appreciate. Now, when it comes down songwriting-wise, this album, like I said, it is heavy and it's aggressive. It's got plenty of thrashy balls to it, but there's a lot of great groove on this album. I wouldn't call it a groove metal album by any stretch of the means. It's more like classic metal or even a little bit of a modern metal groove to it. Like, there are spots on this album where I thought it kind of had a bit of a Lamb of God feel, which you can tell Xentrix has definitely hit up their modern metal, because there were moments on this album, especially with the grooves and the breakdowns, excuse me, had a bit of something in my throat, that kind of felt like Lamb of God, but also you had a little bit of influence from some crossover thrash bands of the modern day, like Power Trip and Enforced, but even a little bit of modern Testament is kind of felt on here. And I will say, in terms of a lot of the lead work on this album, which the lead work on this album is top-notch, like you get pretty much everything you could want out of lead work on a thrash album. You got plenty of shred, you got some technical bits, including a tapping lead section in the title track, 7 Words, but there's great melody on here too, so you can definitely tell, lead work-wise, these guitar players definitely love their Testament, love their Alex Skolnick and Eric Peterson type solos, and just bring out amazing leads. Now, the songs themselves, a lot of these tracks, I feel like I would say half of this album kind of follows a bit of a formula that start out with like a thrashy verse and then some groovy choruses. Tracks like the opening track, Behind the Walls of Treachery, the title track, The Altar of Nothing, and Anything But the Truth, those songs kind of follow a similar formula to each other, and that's let's get fucking thrashy on the verses, and let's slow things down to a nice groove in the choruses. While some people might not like that formula, I really do like that formula because it keeps the dynamics fresh, it keeps everything from sounding the same for the most part in terms of like just going for bullet train speed the whole time or bullet train groove the whole time. But there are some exceptions. There are songs that will actually break the formula and either go full-on speed throughout like 75% or pretty much all-out groove. Like, I would say the one song that I think has the most groove-laden all across the board would be the song Everyone Loves You When You're Dead. It's like that song has like a classic metal groove going on with it, and it's more of like that Black Album era Metallica groove. Like, it's in between classic metal groove and a bit of that thrashiness that you come to associate with the Black Album. So, and I love how there are a couple of tracks like in Everybody Loves You When You're Dead and the final track, Anything But the Truth, both start off with a cool, somber, clean guitar melody. And it's almost kind of misleading because, lyrically speaking, top to bottom, this is trademark Xentrix, talking about social issues and being politically incorrect, which I like because fuck PC. That's just me, not to offend anybody, but then again, some people may need to be offended, but I digress even further with that, and leave it at that. But anyways, so you get those trademark Xentrix lyrics with those elements in play, and I like how in those two songs in particular, with those somber, clean melodies, it's almost misleading because they're not somber songs at all. They were just like, let's show off that we can write clean melodies and do them very well, and I like those for that reason. Although the big difference between the two tracks is that on Anything But the Truth, they further emphasize that melody with some orchestral moments in the background to begin before it just gets into aggressive yet epic riffing all the way through. And I would say a lot of these tracks, like going back to a song like Spitcoin, for example, starts off with these, like, actually that as well as the opening track Behind the Walls of Treachery, both start off with some really cool harmonized guitar melodies. And whereas on the opening track, it's more on top of like almost a hardcore build, whereas in Spitcoin, it's right on top of thrashy insanity. Then you get into a song like Reckless with a Smile. It's almost more of a speed metal song because it has a lot of similarities to like Killing Is My Business era Megadeth. And most of these riffs on this track feel like Megadeth so much. The song My War has this cool tapping melody on top of a hardcore build before it gets into like Testament-inspired thrash, and even some odd time moments come in to kind of show off a little bit of a progressive flair, and even a harmonized lead, which was really cool, and even a couple of guitar harmonics. Kill and Protect, that one kind of is more, again, like that speed metal vibe, but feels very Exodus-inspired, which is really cool. And a lot of this album very much harkens back to classic Bay Area or even California thrash with Metallica, Testament, Exodus, Megadeth, but incorporating some modern influence from the bands I brought up earlier. The grooves and the breakdowns on this album definitely bring in those modern feels to it. Vocally speaking, this is a new vocalist in the band who's been in the band since they come back, and the vocalist, wow, I cannot fucking speak to save my ass tonight. Again, Jay Walsh is his name. He kind of does his best to pay homage to Chris Ashley, but he sounds like a mix between him and Millie Petroza, which is a really interesting fusion, and I like the vocal chops on this album. And then, of course, I mean, just top to bottom, I just fucking love this album for just the overall, like, different influences, whether it's classic or modern, breaking up speed with groove, or breaking up groove with speed at times. So overall, I cannot find anything to find complaint-worthy. I think this could be a candidate for my favorite thrash album of the year. 10 out of 10. I know I might be overrating it, but I genuinely loved this album. And I'm definitely going to get it very soon because holy crap. Xentrix has grown in my likability. Well, not my likability, but my likability for them in recent weeks after listening to the first two and now listening to this. It's like, holy fucking shit. This band kicks ass. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for 7 Words by Xentrix. What did you guys think of the album? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, horns high, see you later. So, Scream Bloody Gore, this album for me is my number 4 album. Now let me preface, every single one of these albums, in my opinion, are 10 out of 10. So ranking this is incredibly difficult, because it can change any given day, but for now, Scream Bloody Gore is ranked as my number 4 album. This is a masterpiece of a debut. It's very thrash-oriented, however, but then again, when death metal was starting out with bands like Death and Possessed and Executioner, who later became Obituary, Morbid Angel, it was still very thrash-oriented. It wasn't fully realized until the end of the 80s with another album we're going to talk about later.